Dr. Zyx'norp prided himself on being the most composed medical professional in the Galactic Confederation's premier hospital ship, the Celestial Panacea. He'd seen it all in his centuries-long career: three-headed Plutonians with acute indigestion, gaseous nebulans suffering from solidification, even that one memorable case of a Jovian with a severe allergic reaction to antimatter. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared him for the day the humans arrived. It all started when the Celestial Panacea received an urgent distress call from a small survey vessel. The ship's captain, a nervous Venusian named Glob, yes, really babbled something about picking up strange bipedal creatures from an uncharted death world. Naturally, the hospital ship rushed to their aid, because what else screams fun times ahead more than rescuing potentially hostile aliens from a planet literally called a death world? As the survey vessel docked, Dr. Zyx'norp straightened his tentacles and put on his most professional air. He'd dealt with primitive species before. Surely these humans couldn't be that different from the rock-eating asteroidians or the plasma-breathing Solarians. Oh, how wrong he was. The moment the airlock hissed open, chaos erupted. A creature with far too few limbs and an alarming lack of scales or protective exoskeleton came barreling out, whooping and hollering like a Martian going through puberty. Hoo-hoo. Did you see that landing, Jess? Nailed it, the creature shouted, its sound holes inexplicably curved upwards at the edges. Dr. Zyx'norp's eye stalks twitched in confusion. Was this some sort of primitive victory dance? A mating ritual, perhaps? Before he could ponder further, a second human stumbled out, clutching its midsection. Nailed it? You nearly killed us, you idiot. I think I broke a rib when we hit that asteroid field. The first human's face contorted into what Dr. Zyx'norp would later learn was a grin, a terrifying display of bone-white food masticators that sent shivers down his spinal column. Ah, come on, Jess, where's your sense of adventure? Besides, we're alive, aren't we? Barely, Jess grumbled, wincing as she prodded her side. Dr. Zyx'norp cleared his throat sac, a sound not unlike a washing machine trying to digest a particularly stubborn sock. Ahem. Greetings, strange bipedal creatures. I am Dr. Zyx'norp, Chief Medical Officer of the Celestial Panacea. I understand you require medical attention? The humans turned to face him, their reactions a comical mix of awe and confusion. The uninjured one, who would later introduce himself as Mike, let out a low whistle. Well, be damned. Jess, are you seeing this, or did I hit my head harder than I thought? Jess, still clutching her side, managed a pained chuckle. If you're hallucinating, then so am I, unless we've stumbled into some sort of intergalactic cosplay convention. Dr. Zyx'norp's patience, already wearing thin, snapped like a Saturnian rubber band. I assure you, we are quite real. Now, if you'll kindly follow me to the medical bay, we can assess your injuries and begin treatment. As they made their way through the gleaming corridors of the Celestial Panacea, Dr. Zyx'norp couldn't help but notice the humans' constant chatter. They seemed to alternate between expressions of pain and bursts of laughter, a concept so foreign to him that he began to wonder if perhaps their injuries had affected their cognitive functions. I can't believe we're on an alien spaceship, Mike marveled, his eyes darting around like a caffeinated Mercurian. This is way cooler than that time we accidentally crashed the company picnic with those Albanian smugglers. Jess snorted, then immediately regretted it as pain shot through her ribs. Oh, don't make me laugh, you jerk. And for the record, that was not cool. I still have nightmares about accordion music. Dr. Zyx'norp's confusion deepened. Were these creatures always this animated? And what in the name of the Galactic Confederation was an Albanian smuggler? Upon reaching the medical bay, Dr. Zyx'norp directed Jess to lie down on the examination table. The advanced diagnostic systems hummed to life, bathing the human in a soft purple glow. Fascinating, Dr. Zyx'norp murmured as he studied the readouts. It appears you have indeed fractured several of your internal support structures. Not to worry, our osteogenic regenerator will have you fixed up in no time. Mike, who had been poking at various pieces of alien medical equipment with the curiosity of a toddler in a nuclear reactor, perked up. Osteogenic regenerator. Sounds fancy. Does it shoot lasers? Please tell me it shoots lasers. Dr. Zyx'norp's eye stalk swiveled in Mike's direction, radiating disapproval. It does not shoot lasers. It utilizes highly advanced quantum entanglement principles to accelerate cellular regeneration and bone knitting. The process usually takes about 3 standard galactic days. Jess and Mike exchanged glances, then burst into laughter, much to Dr. Zyx'norp's bewilderment and Jess's immediate regret. 3 days? Jess wheezed, clutching her side. Doc, I hate to break it to you, but I'll be good as new in a couple of weeks, tops. No fancy quantum whatever required. Dr. Zyx'norp's tentacles curled in indignation. I assure you this is the most advanced medical technology in the known universe. There's no possible way your primitive biology could. He was interrupted by the arrival of his assistant, Dr. Blorp, a gelatinous mass of translucent goo that communicated through a series of bubbles and squelches. Blorp bloop squelch. Doctor, the test results are in. You might want to see this. Dr. Zyx'norp glided over to the holographic display, his eye stalks widening as he absorbed the information. This can't be right. Run the tests again. Mike, who had somehow managed to get his head stuck in a piece of equipment that looked suspiciously like a sentient trash can, called out, "Everything okay over there, Doc? Your tentacles are doing that wiggly dance thing again." Ignoring the human's antics, Dr. Zyx'norp turned to Jess, his voice a mix of awe and disbelief. "According to these scans, your body is already beginning to heal itself. At this rate, you'll be fully recovered in 2 weeks. Jess supplied helpfully, a smug grin spreading across her face. Dr. Zyx'norp's mind reeled. In all his years of medical practice, he'd never encountered a species with such rapid natural healing abilities. It defied everything he knew about biology and medicine. But how? He sputtered, his professional composure crumbling like a Neptunian sandcastle. Mike, having finally extricated himself from the alien garbage disposal, sauntered over, sporting a fresh bruise on his forehead. "Oh, that's just how we roll on Earth, Doc. You should see how fast we heal paper cuts. It's like we've got Wolverine blood or something." Dr. Zyx'norp's confusion only deepened. "Wolverine? Blood?" Jess chuckled, then winced. "It's an Earth animal, known for its rapid healing. Mike's exaggerating, though. We're not actually part Wolverine." "Although that would be awesome," Mike chimed in, his eyes gleaming with mischief. "Imagine having retractable claws. Hey, Doc, you wouldn't happen to have any genetic modification equipment lying around, would you?" Dr. Zyx'norp, still reeling from the revelation of the human's healing abilities, barely registered Mike's question. His mind was racing, trying to reconcile this new information with everything he thought he knew about medicine and biology. "This is unprecedented," he muttered, more to himself than to the humans. "Your cellular regeneration rate is off the charts. The implications for medical science are staggering." Jess, growing slightly uncomfortable with all the attention, attempted to sit up. "Look, Doc, I appreciate the fascination with our biology and all. But is there any chance I could get some pain meds? These ribs aren't going to heal themselves." "Well, they are, but you know what I mean." Dr. Zyx'norp snapped out of his reverie, his professional instincts kicking back in. Of course. My apologies. Dr. Blorp, please prepare a standard dose of our strongest pain suppressant." Dr. Blorp bubbled an affirmative and oozed over to the medical dispenser. A moment later, he returned with a glowing blue vial. "Now," Dr. Zyx'norp began, his tone serious, "this is a very potent medication. It should eliminate all sensation in your thoracic region for at least 48 hours. Please remain still while I administer the—" Before he could finish his sentence, Jess had snatched the vial from Dr. Blorp's pseudopod and downed its contents in one gulp. The medical bay fell silent. Even Mike, who had been in the process of trying to juggle what appeared to be alien bedpans, froze in mid-toss. Dr. Zyx'norp's eye stalks bulged in horror. "What have you done?" That dosage was meant to be administered gradually over 2 full rotations. "You could have." He was cut off by a loud belch from Jess, followed by a satisfied sigh. "Wow, that's some good stuff. Tastes like a mix between cotton candy and jet fuel. Got any more?" Dr. Zyx'norp's tentacles went limp with shock. By all accounts, the human should have been unconscious or worse. Instead, she was sitting up, stretching and looking around with interest. "Fascinating," he murmured, his scientific curiosity overriding his medical concern. "Your species appears to have an incredibly high tolerance for chemical substances as well. Tell me, is this typical for all humans?" Mike, who had resumed his juggling act, now with the addition of what looked suspiciously like alien bedpans, chimed in. "Oh yeah, we're pretty hardy. You should see what happens when we drink coffee. It's like rocket fuel for our brains." Dr. Zyx'norp made a mental note to research this coffee substance later. If it had effects more potent than their strongest pain suppressants, it could revolutionize galactic medicine, or become the most dangerous recreational drug in the universe. As the day wore on, Dr. Zyx'norp found himself constantly amazed and bewildered by the humans. They seemed to possess an almost supernatural ability to recover from injuries that would have incapacitated most species for weeks. Mike, in his endless quest to touch every piece of equipment in the medical bay, managed to sustain no less than 17 minor injuries, each of which began healing almost immediately. Dr. Zyx'norp watched in fascination as cuts sealed themselves, bruises faded, and even a mild plasma burn, don't ask, disappeared in a matter of hours. "I must admit," Dr. Zyx'norp said, his voice a mixture of awe and frustration, "your species' resilience is quite remarkable, though I'm beginning to think your penchant for injury might outpace even your healing abilities." Mike, currently sporting a bandage on his forehead, courtesy of an unfortunate encounter with what he thought was a space toilet, but turned out to be a molecular destabilizer, grinned sheepishly. "What can I say, Doc? Curiosity is both our greatest strength and our biggest weakness. But hey, no risk, no reward, right? Jess, who had been napping off the effects of the alien pain medication, stirred and sat up. Ugh. I feel like I've been hit by a truck. A truck filled with marshmallows and unicorn dreams, but a truck nonetheless. Dr. Zyx'norp hurried over, his diagnostic tools at the ready. How extraordinary. The pain suppressant appears to have metabolized far more quickly than anticipated. Are you experiencing any discomfort, hallucinations, sudden urges to solve complex mathematical equations? Jess blinked at him, then turned to Mike. Is it just me, or did the good doctor just crack a joke? Mike gasped dramatically, clutching his chest. Alert the media. The tentacle doc has developed a sense of humor. Quick, Jess, check if pigs are flying outside the spaceship. Dr. Zyx'norp's eye stalks swiveled between the two humans, a mixture of confusion and amusement playing across his features. I assure you my question was entirely serious. Though I must admit, your species' constant use of humor, even in medical situations, intriguing. As if on cue, the medical-based communication system crackled to life. The nervous voice of Captain Glob filled the room. Dr. Zyx'norp, we may have a situation. Remember those harmless plant samples we collected from the humans' planet? Well, they've sort of escaped, and they're growing. Fast. Mike's eyes lit up with excitement. Oh, space plants, can we see? Before Dr. Zyx'norp could formulate a response, the doors to the medical bay burst open, revealing a scene straight out of a botanical nightmare. Vines and tendrils of every color imaginable were creeping along the corridors, flowers the size of dinner plates blooming and releasing clouds of shimmering pollen. Fascinating, Dr. Zyx'norp breathed, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his sense of alarm. The flora from your planet appears to be as resilient and adaptive as you are. Jess, now fully alert, hopped off the examination table. That's not just any plant, Doc. That's kudzu, the scourge of the American South. Give it an inch and it'll take a mile, or in this case, a spaceship. Mike was already charging towards the overgrown corridor, a manic grin on his face. Finally, a chance to put my Boy Scout skills to use. Who's up for some extreme gardening? Dr. Zyx'norp watched in a mixture of horror and amazement as the two humans sprang into action. Jess, despite her recently healed ribs, began barking orders and organizing the panicking alien crew into an impromptu plant fighting squad. Mike, armed with what appeared to be a repurposed medical laser, was gleefully slicing through vines as thick as his arm. You know, Jess called out as she wrestled with the particularly stubborn tendril. This reminds me of that summer I spent working at my uncle's farm, except the corn didn't fight back. Usually, Mike ducked under a swinging vine, his makeshift laser scythe a-humming. Speak for yourself. This is way more fun than any farming I've done. Hey Doc, you wouldn't happen to have any weed killer rated for intergalactic flora, would you? Dr. Zyx'norp, who had been frozen in shock, snapped out of his daze. I believe we have some industrial strength defoliant in the chemical storage. But surely you don't intend to. His words were cut off as Jess grabbed him by the tentacles, dragging him towards the storage area. No time for safety protocols, Doc. It's us or the killer space kudzu. As they raced through the increasingly overgrown corridors of the celestial panacea, Dr. Zyx'norp found himself reevaluating everything he thought he knew about the universe. These humans, these strange, reckless, impossibly resilient creatures, were unlike anything he had ever encountered. As they raced through the increasingly overgrown corridors of the celestial panacea, Dr. Zyx'norp found himself reevaluating everything he thought he knew about the universe. These humans, these strange, reckless, impossibly resilient creatures, were unlike anything he had ever encountered. The next few hours passed in a blur of action, laughter, and the occasional scream, mostly from the alien crew, though Dr. Zyx'norp would later deny that the high-pitched shriek when a vine tried to steal his favorite tentacle polisher came from him. Mike, wielding a repurposed medical laser with all the finesse of a caffeinated lumberjack, carved a path through the verdant invasion. Hey Jess, remember that time we got lost in the Amazon? This is like that, but with better special effects. Jess, who was busy concocting a potent herbicide cocktail with Dr. Zyx'norp, rolled her eyes. Mike, we've never been to the Amazon. That was a VR game and you got motion sickness from the virtual boat ride. Details, Mike waved dismissively, narrowly avoiding a carnivorous-looking flower that snapped at his hand. The point is, we're basically experts at jungle warfare now. Right, Doc? Dr. Zyx'norp, up to his eye stalks and alien chemicals and trying to decipher Jess's improvised recipe, could only manage a non-committal gurgle. As the battle against the space kudzu raged on, more and more of the alien crew found themselves turning to the humans for leadership. Despite their injuries, lack of knowledge about the ship, and general propensity for causing accidental chaos, Jess and Mike displayed a level of adaptability and quick thinking that left their extraterrestrial counterparts in awe. It's quite remarkable, Dr. Blorp bubbled to Dr. Zyx'norp as they watched Jess organize a fire brigade, using a suspicious-looking blue liquid that Mike swore was just like water, but more fun, to contain a particularly aggressive patch of flame-resistant ferns. These humans seem to thrive on chaos. It's as if the more dangerous the situation becomes, the more alive they appear. Dr. Zyx'norp nodded sagely, his tentacles twisting in a gesture of agreement. Indeed, I'm beginning to suspect that their homeworld must be a place of constant danger and unpredictability. How else could a species evolve such enthusiasm for peril? Meanwhile, Mike had somehow managed to befriend a cluster of sentient moss, convincing it to turn against its kudzu overlords, in exchange for prime real estate in the ship's humidity-controlled arboretum. See, Jess, diplomacy works. We should totally put this on our resumes. Averted interstellar botanical crisis has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Jess, covered in a mixture of sweat, plant sap, and what she hoped was just alien sunscreen, couldn't help but laugh. Sure, Mike. I'm sure NASA will be beating down our doors after this. Assuming, of course, we don't end up in some top-secret government facility being debriefed about alien life for the rest of our natural lives. Oh, good point, Mike mused, absent-mindedly petting his new moss friends. Hey, Doc Zyx, any chance we could get some of those memory-wiping devices? You know, the ones all respectable alien civilizations are supposed to have. Dr. Zyx'norp, who had been in the process of administering first aid to a Venusian crew member, apparently some of the kudzu had developed a taste for gelatinous life forms, looked up in confusion. Memory-wiping devices. I'm afraid I don't understand. Why would any civilized society want to erase knowledge? Mike and Jess exchanged glances, then burst into laughter, much to the bewilderment of the surrounding aliens. Never mind, Doc, Jess chuckled, wiping a tear from her eye. Earth pop culture reference. We'll explain later, maybe over some of that blue stuff that's definitely not space alcohol. As the day wore on and the battle against the botanical invaders continued, Dr. Zyx'norp found himself experiencing an emotion he hadn't felt in centuries: excitement. These humans, with their bizarre mix of recklessness and ingenuity, their ability to laugh in the face of danger and heal from seemingly impossible injuries, were rewriting everything he thought he knew about biology, medicine, and the nature of intelligence itself. By the time the last of the space kudzu had been corralled, with Mike insisting on keeping a souvenir clipping, much to everyone else's horror, the celestial panacea looked like it had been through a war. Scorch marks from misfired lasers decorated the walls, impromptu barricades made of alien medical equipment littered the corridors, and a fine mist of multicolored pollen hung in the air, giving everything a dreamlike quality. As the adrenaline of the day began to wear off, Dr. Zyx'norp noticed something extraordinary. Jess and Mike, despite having exerted themselves far beyond what should have been possible given their injuries, seemed fine. More than fine, actually. They were positively buzzing with energy, recounting their adventures to the awestruck alien crew with animated gestures and frequent bursts of laughter. I don't understand, Dr. Zyx'norp murmured to Dr. Blorp as they observed the humans from across the room. By all accounts, they should be exhausted, their injuries exacerbated by the day's activities. And yet, Dr. Blorp burbled thoughtfully, his gelatinous form shimmering with interest. Perhaps, esteemed colleague, we are witnessing the true power of their species. It seems that adversity doesn't weaken them, it makes them stronger. As if to prove their point, Mike chose that moment to attempt a celebratory backflip, miscalculated his trajectory, and crashed into a carefully arranged display of alien medical achievements. As the priceless artifacts clattered to the floor, Mike emerged from the wreckage, sporting a fresh cut on his forehead but grinning from ear to ear. Oops, my bad, folks. No worries, though, I've had worse wipeouts at the skate park. Say, anyone up for round 2 with the killer plants? I think I saw some suspicious-looking vines in the cafeteria. Dr. Zyx'norp's tentacles drooped in resignation. It was going to be a long night. In the days that followed, as the celestial panacea limped its way back to the nearest galactic confederation outpost for repairs and a thorough decontamination, Dr. Zyx'norp found himself spending every free moment studying the humans. He ran test after test, marveling at their rapid healing, their seemingly boundless energy, and their ability to metabolize substances that would have killed most known life forms. But more than their physical capabilities, it was the humans' mental resilience that truly fascinated him. No matter what challenges they faced, whether it was navigating alien social customs, trying to decipher the ship's controls, or dealing with the occasional outbreak of sentient mold in their quarters, Jess and Mike approached each new problem with a mix of humor, creativity, and stubborn determination that left the alien crew in awe. I've been meaning to ask, Dr. Zyx'norp said one day as he was changing the bandages on Mike's latest inflicted injury. Apparently, Venusian food processors did not respond well to being used as impromptu music instruments. Your species seems to derive great pleasure from, how did you put it? Winging it? Is this a common trait among humans? Mike grinned, barely wincing, as the doctor applied a stinging antiseptic to his wounds. Oh yeah, Doc, we're all about that fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants life. I mean, sure, we've got our planners and our cautious types, but deep down, every human's got a little voice inside them saying what if and why not. It's gotten us into plenty of trouble. Sure, but it's also why we've accomplished so much. Jess, who had been helping to recalibrate some of the medical equipment, turns out her engineer.